after students come into university, they have a lot of One, two, three. Okay. Hello everybody, my name is Peter. I volunteer in the project called JSPA Riga, and this is a part of our series called Insider Information, and we want to welcome Rihards Garančs. He's a good friend of mine, and today we're going to talk about a couple of things, mostly time management and also what it means to live as a student. Richard.
Thanks, hi, Peter. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see you. So Richard, I know you and you know me, but let's maybe talk about you a bit more. Introduce yourself, where you're from, and how you're doing.
Welcome everyone. So my name is Rihards. I'm from Riga, but in the previous lot of years I was working in different European countries, either in short-term or long-term projects. Long-term I've been working in Switzerland and Paris, and I studied in Paris. And right now I'm a lecturer in SSE Riga, lecturing different type of data courses, and I think there were data, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, analytics, and also business leadership courses in there as well. So, and I also have my own consultancy company.
Businessman, that's pretty cool.
But I would then, whatever I get from either academics or vice versa, I just add that back into business practice. Specifically helping companies to improve their analytical skills, their data literacy, and helping them with different kind of projects.
That sounds awesome. That sounds like a dream job for me now.
It was a dream job for me as well.
Is it still?
No, I think it was like 5-7 years ago. I was in one training, very good training, and I saw this trainer who was both a lecturer and then also a trainer. And he also wrote books, so this is the last part. That's but I thought like, wow, this is such an amazing thing, What, 5-7 years into here I am.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's maybe take a broader picture. A lot of students who are coming in to their university, they have a lot of issues because their schedule has been built around school and what their parents told that they need to do. For example, it was the case for me. So every time I came from school, I had a certain routine where it was controlled not by me but from somebody else. And after students come into university, they have a lot of a lot of students have issues with when they come from school because their routine has been controlled by their parents, and also they've been controlled what to do and when, so they've been told. But when they come into university, they're becoming more and more independent. And my question for you is, what are the main failures or the main troubles that students have with time management when they come into university as a freshman?
Yeah, thanks. I think there's 3 major things. First of all, it's the fact that you procrastinate. So students procrastinate and they do postpone everything until the very last moment. And when you do that at the very last moment, what you realize that you have a lot of stress and you do subpar work. If you want to understand a bit more about procrastination, I'm not going to speak about it here, but Tim Urban from waitbutwhy.com, he has a famous TED Talk. You're going to read his 3-part series in terms of why we procrastinate, actually how you can beat procrastination. So there's already some tools behind that. So
is it the one with the monkey?
Yeah, that's the one that
I've seen that. That's a wonderful interview.
Monkey and panic monsters. That's actually very good. Yeah. The second thing is expectations, and then this is when you go from this one extreme to the other extreme, where there are some people still who plan a lot, and you would plan too much to do during the day, and you're very much overwhelmed at the end of the day. And you realize that, I have done like 1/5 of that, and you feel frustrated. And that's also very much what also happens in work. So, you need to set clear expectations in terms of how you plan time, because if you plan it by day, you're most certain, or you have your typical to-do list, you most certainly will be in failure. So this is definitely, like if somebody tells me that I plan it by day and I plan to make to-do list, I say that's garbage. It completely doesn't work anymore.
Okay, I do to-do list. I guess I'm doing the garbage thing.
Yeah, that's there's this modified version that actually works. So there's this master list, and the idea that instead of you look at what day, you start looking at your big picture goals that you want to do.
Yeah.
You cascade them down to something that you can do within a quarter or a month. And then you cascade it down to a week, and then from that week you just pick out certain tasks that you want to do within certain days. You know, because always you're going to have some unexpected meetings, some unexpected jobs, errands, and what have you. And you know, if you do it per day, you know, your day plan will most certainly not work. If you realize, okay, I have to do like whatever 5 tasks per week. If I do 2 of them, you know, in one day, okay, then there's one day that if there's something happens, I'm not going to be feel bad about myself. And if I did that earlier, okay, I have like 2-3 days in a sense, more or less 3 days. I can enjoy myself and actually realize that I have a very good fruits flavor. And I think the third thing is simply habits. That's what you said. There's routines that you do, and they would be setting you up to a very nice path. And you know, if you don't have those routines, then once again you're bound to failure. I mean, when I was a student as well, I remember I had this one specific place in school where I would just after studies I would just go in and start reading and then whatever, like preparing for extra studies, and you know, that works. Plus, like maybe one more thing, that whenever you're in studies, like whenever you're listening to the lectures, I think because technology and sometimes also it's a fault of professors that you know the attention span is very low. And that means you're not focused. You know, you doze away. You have your phone that you want to look into. You think about what you're going to eat, and you never listen to what the lecture is. And then when you wake up at some point, okay, well, I don't understand what's happening, and then you're going to say that the lecturer is bad because he has like you don't understand what he has said. But you just cut out some parts because you doze off at some point. I think the focus is very important, being present in the moment when you listen to the lectures. That helped me because I didn't have to actually then do that much home studies because I was listening to the lecture, I was taking diligently notes. And you know, when I came back, I mean, I understood everything. When I came to the next lecture, when I had the exams, I was present in the lectures and I was able to do it. But if you're like sitting on your computer or on your phone, wherever, it just, you know, defeats the purpose and why you sit there, rather than just go and study on your own.
Yeah, that was my logic for the most time in my studies.
Yeah, exactly. That's the result that you can do.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So just to summarize, students procrastinate. They leave everything till the end of the deadline. Second of all, is that they don't have. Let me rephrase that. They have very bad schedule, so they
this to-do list, they don't work. Like if you're going to plan per day, it's not going to work.
So they plan a bit. They plan very badly, so they try to accomplish a lot, or they don't accomplish anything during the day, and they get devastated with that. And the third one is that students don't think rationally, so they just come to lectures so that they're present, and they use technology just like, you know, TikTok, Instagram, and everything. So this is the problem. Okay, and you kind of spoke about some solutions that we can find from there. One of them is modified to-do list, where we look through the whole week and what we can do in a week. Any other options?
So there are actually multiple tools there. So one of them is called master list approach, and that's actually very much linked with. There's also Stephen Covey's book on first things first. So you plan the most important things in your schedule at the very beginning of that week. So you plan it. Okay, this is the time I'm going to work on my most important goals that I have. Maybe it's preparation for exam, maybe some project you have, what have you. Then you have some smaller items, you know, like answering maybe smaller tasks around, you know. Answering some important emails that are there, and finally you have this SAD, which is, you know, everyday things that crop up like, during the day. And unless you plan in the big things in the beginning, you're going to be cluttered with these small sands and pebbles, and you will never have time to do those big things. So you'll never actually achieve goals that you want to.
Okay.
This is it's very much linked with this master list, because the master list also helps you to do that as well, to pick out what is important within that month, you know, within the week, and maybe some long term, you know, yearly or multi-year goals. Then a very good technique that I know for a lot of students it helps a lot, and this is 2 + 5 minute rule. So typically, you know, one of the big problems when you need to work, it's switching costs. Actually, it's starting that step. Making this first step that actually you sit and open up that book. You go and sit up and write the first letters of that essay or term paper or what have you. And normally, you know, you're just procrastinating. That's what leads to procrastination. But what you can do is, you know, there's typically, even no matter how busy you are, you can always allocate 2 minutes or whatever. You know, And the rule says that there's tasks that takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Because you can just go and you have 2 spare minutes, you can go and do it now. Like wash your dishes or answer a very simple email that's out there. But if it takes more than 2 minutes, then start doing so. Say to yourself, like, I'm going to do that starts with 2 minutes. That's it. And after those 2 minutes, like don't add a timer, but still you can realize maybe it's 2 minutes. If it still doesn't go as planned, then say, okay, I've already been doing this for 2 minutes. I'm going to try to do 5 more minutes. So just add 5 more minutes because you're already in there. Okay, 5 more minutes. I'm okay with allowing these 5 more minutes. And typically at that point, there's going to be 2 things that can happen. Those 5 minutes, you will be getting into this flow, and you're going to start on doing your job. And if it's still not there, then okay, don't pressure yourself. You're not going to be in a good position, so you're maybe not creative or like you're going to just force yourself. So just quit that, do something else, and just don't feel bad about yourself with that type of approach.
Oh, okay. So after 5 minutes, if it doesn't work, it feels like pushing stone. Just
ditch it, and do something else. Switch to something else, and at some point, today, later, today, that day, or tomorrow, some other time, you should come back to it.
I also heard about like urgent and important.
Yeah, that's actually. It's once again, it's also linked to this first things first. This is the size of our matrix, and also this is very much used by this same Stephen Covey's book. And I think if you would, that's what I actually have asked a lot of students to do. So you would write where you see yourself in 5 or 10 years, like how you'd like to be. And out of all the things that they've written down, if you would plot them in terms of whether they're urgent or not urgent, and whether they're important or not important, and you put that on a matrix, you would see that 80% of all of those things would be that are not urgent, but important. 80% of those things. But at the same time, if I would ask them, how much time do you spend this day, or last week, last month, on tasks that are not urgent but important, that would be less than 30% typically. So there's a lot of gaps. That's why there's a lot of these missed expectations. And I think I tell them, this quadrant 2, this like from Eisenhower, this quadrant 2, not urgent and not important, this is where the magic happens. This is actually where you can actually make your life much better. But it's difficult if you have no urgency to do this. Like, there's no urgency to do exercises. There's no urgency for you to go and get a better degree or look for a job at some point. No, there's some urgency at some point of those things, but some of the things they never have any urgency, like getting into a good relationship or getting out of a relationship that doesn't work.
Yes. Also very actual for students.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the type of things that they are the ones that will make and improve your quality of life. But if you're not conscious about the things that you're investing time, it's not urgent, then it's difficult. And for me personally, like that was one of the transformational things that I did. I started consciously working on tasks that are not urgent but they're important. It's difficult, but with these 2 + 5 minute rules, some other tricks, I'll try that you can actually do that.
That's a very interesting approach. I actually never heard about 2 + 5. And also when you talk about urgent and important, I think setting goals is also very important. Setting specific goals within the deadline that you want to try to achieve, and also the important things that you need to discuss to separate them into specific goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Like goal by goal basis, and then you have deadlines. I think that's also very helpful.
Well, I think the funny thing about these goals is that typically, when you're going to speak about goals, and you're going to hear from whatever intellectual or anyone, you're going to say you need to do SMART goals. Specific, achievable, measurable, relevant, and time-based. But actually it's garbage.
Hello!
It completely doesn't work. Why is that? Because you can do it yourself. You can try to put whatever goal and you put that as SMART. It doesn't, like when you read it, I can give you my example. I had the goal that I want to learn French to B1 level until end of that year, because then I'm going to go into France.
Yeah.
So, read that, it's relevant and time-based. It takes all those things, but I never did that. Because you read it, you don't want to wake up and that's the thing that you want to do. You just read out loud, it doesn't budge you, you don't want to do it. So therefore, there's a completely different way how you can do it. That's called the deep-rooted method. So it's like imagine a tree, and imagine how seed grows. Any plant or seed grows. Before it grows on the surface, it develops root system. That's the first thing that you need to do. And for you, this root system is your motivation. The first thing that you need to do before you do any goals is look in your motivation. Do you really want to achieve that? And meaning that, do you want to achieve that? Are you ready to eat dirt? Are you ready to do whatever it takes? Be up late at nights? go extra mile, like mile, whatever. And if you to actually go and achieve that. If the answer is no, then my suggestions don't. Either you have to dig deeper, really find why you need it. You have to then maybe look deeper in your motivation, or then just don't do it because it's going to be doomed to failure.
So let's take for example, I want to learn how to play piano.
Yeah.
I want to kind of play this play by the end of this year, and for that I need to develop certain technical skills. I need to look for a deeper motivation.
Why do you want to play?
Yeah. Why would I want to play piano? Do I want to, be
Impress
a
a girl or whatever? maybe that's
yeah. Or I want to actually learn something new and learn some new skill that also develops my brain. So then, is there any opportunity to change my motivation of what I'm doing? For example, could you change the motivation?
Of course. I mean that's what you do. You have to dig deeper. You look like deep inside of you why you want to do this. Maybe you're going to find some reasons that you could not articulate enough why you want to do it in the first place, and then you realize, that's what I want. Why I want to do this, and then you'll have this motivation to actually go through these difficulties to actually go and get things done. I think I can give you my example. When I was working in Switzerland, in the beginning it was very rough. I was unsuccessful. I was on the verge of being fired, and then I went and then was thinking about I was working a lot still, but maybe I could have worked more and could have just changed the strategy of my approach to this work. And then I went and dig deeper, why I'm going through the suffering. That was suffering for me because I was living in the basement, all of my savings were spent in this super expensive country, and I thought why I'm going through this. And once I found this motivation, why I want to do this, and I wanted to become a stronger person, I wanted to learn these skills. And I want to say that actually I was able to go through this tribulation, through these difficulties. And actually when I found this strive, this motivation, then it evolves into this grit, this persistence and perseverance, your resilience. And I was able to actually then succeed eventually. But before that motivation, that would be quite difficult.
Okay. So with regards to Switzerland, one last question. For you, the motivation was a bigger picture of improved self, not just to earn money, just to make something.
Yeah, just to show myself that I was able to actually to handle that type of job on that level. Be able to also say that I was going through this rough patch, through this difficulty, and I was able to overcome that, overcome whatever insecurities that I had, issues, and being able to this learning as well. Issues because there's a lot of things I had to learn. So just also to prove myself that I'm capable of handling these type of difficulties.
And I think also for students it's always important to remember the bigger picture what they're part of, and especially this comes question when you choose what you study. It's also very important to choose something that is not only profits yourself but also profits for the general public. Whether it's your family or the surrounding around you, or something that you can contribute to a bigger goal. And that been also for me was very monumental to understand that, and also that when you're part of a bigger picture and you look at the bigger picture, we have goal that goes beyond you, goes beyond your personal desires, and then it's easier for you to go through certain difficulties and wake up at 7 or 5 a.m. and just go work out. All those motivational videos don't help.
I think it helps for a short amount of time. That's why you have to dig deep. It's shallow motivation.
Yeah. Well, that's very insightful. Thank you. Maybe one last question with regards to some techniques. I'm gonna tell you a couple of techniques that I heard and that I used to study, and then you tell me whether it's garbage or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Pomodoro technique, 25 plus 5.
I know that. To be honest, this is the only thing I have used. Bunch of techniques, a lot of this Ivy League method, ABCD method, grow model, whatever. This Pomodoro technique, I have not used it as such. I have used some different version of that. That's kind of sprints. What I typically do, and this actually make my workflows. That's how I structure my day. Is that I will try to have 2 or 3 sprints per day. And 2 or 3 sprints would mean a couple of long-term, long-term meaning like up to 3 hours.
Yeah, not up to 5 days.
But just like long-term sprints where you're deliberate, time-bound, and purposeful, where I do some work and then I don't take rest. You did a sprint of a lot of work, you did maybe achieved some milestones, you take rest, and then in the afternoon you take one more. Maybe in the evening I would get the last one, so that happens so not always, but sometimes I would come into an evening, and then I know that I have maybe some backlog of work, and I would just realize that I'm having this like second breath and I'm able to do a lot of work. So that's how I do it instead of this 25 and 5, and I don't like it that there will be some like timer that like alarm that ticks.
Just did it.
So this timer that ticks out. So therefore, it's more of a you feel like because you think is that you can get into flow.
Yeah.
And flow means that you work without feeling the time.
Yeah.
And it's like the best saying is that when you're in the flow that you work so consciously that you realize that you have to run to the bathroom. And that's a good way how to show that you're in the flow. And you try to achieve those as much as possible. If you achieve those, then you're super productive during your day or during that sprint.
So you have 2 specific sprints a day, not 25. Okay. Yeah, I also managed to see that sometimes 25 plus 5 doesn't work for me because when I go into deeper focus, like a deep focus, then I can spend 1 or 2 hours.
Exactly.
And then then just like 15 minutes is not enough for me to rest.
Yeah, exactly. And then you maybe lose your train of thought. Let's say 25 minutes. Okay, I'm off, and then you come back. And think, where was I? What was my train of thought? So that's why I don't use it. Small technique.
Okay. Active recall.
Yeah, that's very good. And actually, just to speak about learning, there are these 4 major things that help you in your learning path. One of them was what I already mentioned is this focus, that you focus during that during a specific time period. Second thing is this active recall, and and actually you should recall at least 4 times. If you want to make sure that your knowledge settles in, you have to recall it multiple times. And sometimes what helps me is that for example, I would read books and I would discuss the learnings, and even sometimes when I make lectures, that helps me as well to once again recall a lot of things and then settle them into my mind. The third thing is reflection, and reflection means that it's similar to this active recall, but you reflect on what you learned, and how can that change your behavior. So you reflect on how you can actually apply that knowledge, in your everyday life. And you just make some learning principles, then you would see, and then you see which kind of patterns when this principle should be applied. Then you know when to keep that in. And last, it's perspective in terms of the fact that when I learn, and most of you, even if you have budget, still there's a lot of cost behind studies, both in terms of the finance and both in terms of your time. Or also when you read a book, you realize that there's a person who has condensed his life lessons, maybe sometimes his entire life lessons into one book. And when you put that into perspective, you realize how much knowledge you can gain and how much time you're wasting if you're not learning at that present moment. So putting that in perspective, that helps you also to kind of realize, put yourself a bit more humble, realize, okay, actually, I should learn right now instead of watch YouTube or TikTok videos.
Absolutely true. TikTok and YouTube have become very annoying. From a personal experience, I get very distracted very easily, and sometimes I have this habitual moments where I just pick up the phone and go on Instagram. I myself use the Forest app, where I restrict my access to those kind of Instagram and YouTube, both on my iPhone and Mac as well. And if I do access it, or for some reason I need to access, the trees die, the improvised trees that they have. Do you also use the same kind of technique, or you?
I've used a bit more rough, because I just deleted those apps. I don't know, okay, I'll maybe elaborate on this. For me, problem was when the first thing when I woke up, I picked up a phone and I thought that I wanted to do something else. So for me, I wanted to change it to a prayer, so I wanted to change it to prayer in the morning rather than picking up the phone in the morning. And it was difficult, and I realized, and what I did, I just looked at, under the screen time, you see how much time you spent on certain apps. You realize, okay, gosh, I have spent 2 hours per day, and I've made 50 or 90 pickups per day on my phone. That's really unhealthy. So what I started to do, I started to make my phone boring. What you do with boring phone, you make it grayscale, so that means you don't see notifications.
Maybe I'll show other people how it looks like. So grayscale means, let's open Instagram. You can do like triple click.
Yeah.
And it becomes
black and white.
It becomes black and white. I don't know if you can see it.
And it becomes boring.
It is.
The second thing, you would even like some of these apps that I use, I move them into second screen and even into folders of the second screen of the folder. It's just like difficult to go and access that app. Especially like with games with all of these things, so you go and access them. It's difficult for you to access them, and if they're not visible, you most probably going to forget them either. And it's there, but it's just difficult. And then because we're lazy, it's I'll go and play that game when I open up on Instagram this next time. And if it still doesn't work, you find some shortcuts, you go and delete that app for a while, and then see yourself. Do you feel better or worse off? And I mean, I can guarantee you most, like I think, asked a lot of students, but this 80+ students would say that they never felt better, they're not missing out on anything, and they have extra time that they actually go and do something useful.
Yeah, deleting Instagram account and TikTok account is very useful. I would strongly recommend that.
Maybe not the account, but at least delete the app for a while.
Deactivating account also. You can also access your Instagram on the browser, and that's healthy. And also should be said, I think you should also watch, for all the students that are watching, you watch Social Dilemma movie on Netflix, and brings a very good perspective on why those apps are becoming so addictive. So the idea is that they actually want you to spend more time on them, and as soon as you understand that, your perspective changes.
Exactly. So that's the third part. This fourth part that's also
the perspective changes on whether you actually need to watch 100 video of cats and dogs
or whatever. Now, then does that make you more fulfilling in that point?
Yeah.
Mental gains is just it's negative already because you're losing your time that you could have spent on something else.
Unfortunately, we are very dopamine-driven people.
But I think the dopamine detox can help you. Like some of these type of things that make your phone boring and so forth. That does help, and I'm happy that I have like a very healthy relationship with this phone, and it's not wasting that much time.
Yeah, establishing a healthy relationship with phone is very helpful. Okay, moving on to the next question. We talked about time management, but also you're a professor, right?
Yeah.
So student-professor relationship is different depending on different universities. But it's no longer any student-teacher in a school relationship. So maybe tell me about 3 things that you find would be helpful from students to how they can build a student-professor relationship from your perspective.
The first thing that comes to my mind is like right now a lot of lectures are online, or I know our hybrid format. And for me personally, like the way I can understand what I'm teaching, whether people understand it, is if I see people's faces, I see their reactions, and I understand, okay, am I going too fast? Maybe there's something that they don't agree or they don't understand and they need to explain it. But if I go and speak in Zoom and there's only name and surname written down, maybe it's a picture, it's very difficult to understand, okay, what's happening. And even at that point, there's also this issue of this, who's going to call 911? There's this issue like there's a lot of people are around this person who's dying. Nobody calls the person because everyone is thinking that this other person is going to call, and that's the same thing. If I ask, okay, any questions, and then that's the same approach. There's another person who's going to go and ask questions, and at the end of the day, there's this awkward silence. Nobody asks any questions. So maybe I could go and ask specifically, do you have any questions? What's your reflection? But I think it's important that you start at least have at least a Zoom camera open, that you can see see the person and understand like okay, what is this? What is the reaction? Otherwise, it can be just like a pre-recorded lecture. And what's the point?
And also you show respect to students by having online lectures. So I also encourage students to show respect to their professors. They take time and they prepare the material.
It's different. It's a little different than like right now. I have like these business leadership skills on career development, and it's so much more difficult. And I was like not happy with the result, even despite the fact that I was preparing and everything. than compared to live sessions. Because you can do a lot of things, like you can draw a lot of things on Blackboard and see examples, then the students are more engaged, more active, and then the group work is much better. Like some things you cannot even do or have to think about workarounds. So definitely that has been a challenge, and it's candid. At least this kind of mutual respect would be one very beautiful thing.
How do you think for students sometimes it's very hard to approach professor just because they seem to be inapproachable. Sometimes there's a professor, sometimes there are professors that you can ask them a question, they say, I've told that in the lecture. Therefore there's a stereotype that, at least for me, most of the time, the professors are very busy.
I mean, it's true the professors are busy, but I think if a professor repeats that I told that in the lecture, I don't think that's a good sign. I think at best then what the professor should do is show them, okay, there's this section of material, we're going to go and have a look at that, and then to find your answers. Maybe I don't have time to explain to you. But I think it's true that it's difficult to be approachable. I can give an example from my side. If I would have 150 students and then suddenly I would have loads of emails. I have my job is I have projects in the project room, what have you, and I will have so many emails. Most probably some of these emails have been answered during some newer lectures, or maybe this already is relevant, or maybe even some questions are mundane and then maybe not that important, or maybe there's just misclarification, or you need to the student has to do let's say this investigation of him or herself. And I did not I realized that I couldn't answer these emails. I said, look, listen, and that was maybe a problem that I didn't expect so those expectations, because a lot of students were unhappy that I couldn't answer those emails. And that was my problem, because I was not expecting that wealth of emails, particularly from that cohort that I was teaching. So, but I mean, I think it's reflection. You need to also reflect on certain things, like some feedback that's given to all the courses, and you have to take in that feedback for both the students and the professor. Okay, what I can do. For students, they get the exam results, they can go and reflect, and then for the professor, when he or she gets the feedback from us in terms of how well is the lectures going.
Yeah. Professors can be very busy, and sometimes it also, I think, depends on the school, right?
Yeah, of course.
Within the SSE Riga, the teaching part is much better than in some other state universities, because professors tend to kind of do research, and for them teaching part is just nonsense. And I think that's also dependent. So always ask for extracurriculum literature in that case. If a professor cannot answer your questions directly, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, don't be afraid, of course. No, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? I mean, I don't have time, and that's it. Definitely the professor, that's a problem. We are egocentrical, and we think that we are all he's gonna go and remember. Most probably, professors will not remember that interaction, because he's gonna have hundreds and hundreds of students, unless you do something that's extraordinary, do some blatant disregard. Maybe then you're gonna remember that, or do something extraordinarily good. But normally, professors will not remember whom they were speaking that day.
That's actually very funny, because with my bachelor's professors, I wrote with him my bachelor thesis, and then I had 3 or 4 courses with him in my master's. And one day I said hi to him, and he was like, I think I know your face. Are you from Humboldt University? It was randomly around the street. So it's a bit of extreme, but still. And I thought he's one of the good professors, because he always involved us into conversation and everything. So I think also students have to understand professors better in a sense of what they can and cannot do. Not everybody has unlimited resources. That's good. Maybe what you can tell something about to your fellow professors, if somebody's going to watch this video, maybe how they can improve the communication with students.
Well, I think one of them is asking questions to students, asking open questions. Is everything okay? Do you understand that? Or maybe doing some interactions, like maybe some quiz, some checkup, that also helps, like this interactivity, like you also said, you remember Fawn, this professor who was engaging you in discussion, that you feel that students' opinions is valued. And that's one thing. Secondly is, I think also put that in perspective, that you have this amazing opportunity to teach students something that's valuable, that can be good for them in their life. They might remember, for me, one of the best things that I have, like motivations, that like people would come to me and say, thank you, Professor, because of you I was kind of able to get into this job, or I actually just changed the way of looking at certain things. Once again, this perspective, how you look at certain things, then you can be realizing that, maybe I should prepare more for the lecture, maybe I should be more open, maybe I should be more engaged, and then it's not that it's a necessary evil, but that's a pleasure that I can have.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a very helpful perspective on both students and professors. And I mean, you've been student, you've been professor, and you are a professor, so you're gonna understand that better. So if you're from SSE Riga, go check out his data science course. He's a very good professor. At least I can tell that from here. To the end of the interview, and at the end, I just want to ask, maybe you have any book recommendations that you can give students, independent of like your course, what you study, or just general.
Yeah, actually I have like books is one of the ways how I actually understand a lot of things, and I can get the inspiration also for lectures and have a more holistic view. Now currently I read two books that are very good, both of them, and both of them are super new. One of them is Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order, which is this follow-up on this book, which I can show some of this book. Another one is by Ray Dalio, Changing World Order, which is a follow-up on his other book. So, and these are the books that I would suggest the most. One of them is Principles by Ray Dalio. This is the first part. That's about how you can actually improve your thinking, how you can actually be more mindful, have better decision making, and also be more productive. So it's a very, very good book, really good book, very interesting story that Ray Dalio poses. So I read now as follows. Second thing is Jordan B. Peterson called Rules of Life, and Antidote to Chaos. I think this was both of these were books of the year. So like 2 years ago, this is the book that I read last year, my book of the year. And reason is because it's first of all such high quality, and some rules that would you might think, okay, what has to do with it, but they're just so ingrained that they're atypical. That's not like your typical self-help books that are out there. This is just much more deeper understanding. So definitely. Very, very good book.
And Jordan Peterson goes into deep details also, and he's clinical psychologist, and so he looks into that.
Yeah, so both of them I now read their follow-up books. But in terms of, these are will be a bit more advanced, but I mean, if you want to look at something much more lighter, then I think the first stop for any kind of student would be the Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. So it's like a classic, here 50 million copies sold, so that's a bit of a classic, and for me it was awesome. I was second year student and I read that, and that was like mind-changing for me as well. When I read that was so good, so very, very, very impressive. Then apart from that, in terms of also thinking, like how you think, and I've actually become better at studying. I think Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow is a very good book. Sometimes it can be difficult to read, but there's a lot of very good insights that you can get from that book in terms of like why you have some mental shortcuts and how you should overcome them, and actually better at decision. And in terms of putting yourself in perspective, and then when you deal with stress, I think a very, very good, easy to read book is Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's about like how you can actually conquer your stress. So very good methods. Very, very good book, easy to read. A lot of great methods that I've used, and they have helped me to cope with stress. And lastly, to put your life in perspective, I think is in realizing like how lucky you are that you're living in these times, and your life is just like read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Very small book, super powerful. Will change the way you think about life, death, and appreciation. So these would be a couple of book recommendations. I mean, I have a library of books, and then
he does a lot of books.
But I think these would be my starting points, maybe.
Yeah, I mean the last book is also very interesting, and putting in perspective how lucky we are, how blessed we are to live in this time. That's very important. despite all the chaos that happens. That's
Yeah.
important. Okay, thank you, Rihards. That was a that was a very eye-opening interview for me as well. I learned a lot of new things, and hopefully all the students are watching and learning along. And thank you, John.
Thanks. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye bye.